Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca Sigala, and I am a boudoir photographer and self-love activist here in Israel. I have this idea to start a new project where I interview incredible women that I admire in different professions and fields. And I'm here today with Johanna Hazan, who is a coach, therapist, and dietary counselor. And ever since I met her, I have loved her outlook and the work that she's done. And Johanna, if you want to talk a little bit about what you do, that would be great.
Cool. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm Johanna Hazan, originally from London, and now I'm based in Jerusalem, here in Israel. And as Rebecca said, I'm a coach, therapist, and dietary counselor. Really, I integrate lots of different therapeutic methodologies in order to treat people who are suffering from a range of different issues, obstacles, blocks, things holding them back. But I specialize in disordered eating, body image, and low self-esteem. And I think that that was one of the things that we really bonded on when I told you that that's what I worked with. And then you said that you did boudoir photography. Both of us had these little light bulb moments of like, wow, so essentially we're both self-love activists.
Yes, definitely. So when did you hear about boudoir photography before you met me, or was that the first time?
So I had heard of boudoir photography before, I think in my sort of wilder youth.
Yes.
I was very interested in like performance, art, costumes, things like that. And also really coming from quite a feminist point of view and a women's empowerment. You know, women's empowerment has always been very interesting to me. And so I've explored many different avenues of that, and body positivity, the idea of bearing all in order to feel great about who you are, and also covering up and dressing modestly in order to feel great about who you are. And having personally explored and experimented with a variety of things, and also been very interested in what's felt good and right for other women. I knew about boudoir photography, and I'd actually, I'd had a shoot. I'd been in a shoot that I'd commissioned many years ago, and I guess I had changed a lot over the years, and my approach to my own body had changed over the years. And when I met you, I thought, wow, you know, this is really cool that there's somebody doing this. And what particularly interested me about what you do is the fact that you work with many women who have chosen, for religious, cultural, social reasons, to cover up and to dress more modestly. And so these weren't women who were going to be necessarily posting the photos over Facebook. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And I wanted to know more about how your work that worked. Exactly.
Amazing. So before I guess we go into what we do and how it's similar, what is your specialization again? Like, you work with women with eating disorders generally.
I do.
And how do you work? Like, what's kind of like the process when someone comes to you?
Right, okay, so I think it's really important to begin with to differentiate between eating disorders and disordered eating. A full-blown eating disorder is a sort of very extreme manifestation of disordered eating, or dysregulated eating, you could call it as well. And different people use different words they're comfortable with. And I'm also a fan of not necessarily labeling problems and letting somebody define their experience in their own way. But essentially, I'm very interested in helping people who are struggling with emotional and psychological blocks around food and body that are causing them to act out either with extreme restriction, or actually not extreme, I'm not even going to use that word, restricting what they eat, overeating and using food as some sort of emotional crutch, purging behaviors, which are really, they can be any kind of compensatory behavior. It doesn't have to mean vomiting, but actually exercise and overeating and then restricting and constantly back and forthing. Oh, I've eaten this, so I can't eat this, so therefore on Tuesday I'll eat this. Really, anybody who's suffering from some sort of obsession, some sort of taking up of head space and heart space because of food and body thoughts.
Working with so many women as a boudoir photographer, I feel like it's something that almost every woman struggles with, and obviously there must be a range. So like, how do you know when it's serious and you should seek help, you know?
Right. So I think that anyone who's suffering should seek help. It's not about comparing to other people. If you feel that your head is way too noisy and way too busy with these thoughts about what you're eating and what you're not eating and how you look, and it's stopping you from having relationships and living freely, it's okay to ask for help. And then in the other kind of question to ask yourself is, do you want to change the way you eat, i.e. incorporate more foods and feel less afraid to eat the correct calorific amount? Or do you want to eat less? Do you want to use food less as an emotional crutch, yet can't? And you asked before how I work, and really I work in a twofold way. I begin by really addressing the emotional and psychological reasons for why somebody is using food, whether that's in a restrictive way or in a compulsive or a overeating kind of way, whatever it is. And there are a variety of other obsessive disordered eating behaviors as well, including orthorexia and only being able to eat in secret, all kinds of things like this. So nobody is acting out in these compulsive ways without there being some sort of underlying discomfort. In some cases it's trauma, but discomfort, and there can be trauma with a big T and trauma with a small t. Poor attachment
as a
as a child.
put it.
Absolutely. You know, poor attachment as a child can manifest as abuse or neglect, or it could simply be that mummy was busy and I had babysitters and nannies a lot, and for whatever reason that's affected me, and that might cause an array of issues. Or it could be that I lost my toy train when I was 8 years old and I loved that train, and for some reason it's lying under the surface. It's not necessarily something huge, but these behaviors and also the thought patterns are really clever distraction techniques from something very uncomfortable and in some cases very painful. So I treat that through a variety of, I suppose, like therapeutic and kind of coaching techniques. I say coaching because I am also a qualified coach, and I'm quite into goal setting. I'm quite into not only examining and exploring the problem, but then working out the tools that can help us to manage it and sometimes overcome it. Then alongside that, I use clinical nutrition, very CBT based, and I do meal planning. And it's not about just giving somebody a menu that I'm hoping that they're going to be able to eat from immediately. I know that that's not possible for the people I work with, but working with them to create a plan that suits their tastes, what they enjoy eating, and also their lifestyles,
That's
their
really
budgets.
amazing that you're a nutritionist and also a therapist. It's such a beautiful combination.
Yeah, so, and I wanted that. I didn't want to work only in one area because I think they're very linked. And I've had so many clients who came to me as a therapist who had been let down by dietitians who didn't understand the emotional and psychological challenges of just changing the way that they ate. And I also have worked with people who thought that a dietitian would be the answer, and then you know, realized that they needed so much more. I really do think that, not for everybody, but for the people I work with, there needs to be a combination, and they need to work in synchronicity with one another.
And so what ages of women are you generally working with?
So generally these days I work with women aged between about maybe 17 and 40.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I like to say younger women, although I don't think that's fair. I think that young can mean anything. I have a background as a youth worker, working with marginalized and at-risk youth, and so I have worked with women, girls, as young as 15, but generally late teens, 20s, 30s is, you know, the main areas.
Okay, amazing. So yeah, I mean, I think what's similar about our fields is mainly that we work with women, and we get to see like the psychological workings of women of all different ages and different stages in life. And it's so interesting. Like, body image is something that is such a big theme for me as a boudoir photographer, because women are coming to me and wanting, you know, whether or not it's they want a therapeutic experience, it generally ends up being somewhat of one, because you are presenting yourself in such a vulnerable way, and it kind of, I do want to be supportive as a boudoir photographer. I'm not a therapist like you, but I want to be supportive as a boudoir photographer and give them a safe space, and a space that feels like their own, and allow them to express themselves in the way that they feel is right and is positive for them. And I have had clients before that have had eating disorders in the past, and like I said, I feel like most women struggle with like body image issues, and that can manifest with disordered eating and just, you know, obsessive thoughts and things like that. And I think I'd like to be like a little bit more supportive in that therapeutic way, but obviously still not presenting myself as a therapist, because I know that takes like many years of work and certifications and things like that. How do you think that, I guess before I go into how you think I could be supportive as a boudoir photographer, what do you think that someone going into a experience like a boudoir shoot should know if they had an eating disorder in the past, or any of these issues that we were talking about?
It's a really, really good question. I have supported clients who've chosen to do a boudoir shoot, and I think that there are a lot of things to consider. I think the motivations for doing it are a really important thing to really very honestly examine. And if you are in eating disorder recovery, especially earlier eating disorder recovery, I would really encourage you to talk about it with your therapist or your support team, your support network, your friends, your family. Because for some people, doing a boudoir shoot is about genuine curiosity. What's it going to be like for me to see these photos of myself? What's it going to be like to have this experience of being sexy for 2 hours?
Right.
Feeling beautiful.
Right.
And then for some people, it's actually another manifestation of the symptom of body obsession. And with things like Instagram especially, there's a lot of, you know, all of these influencers and everything like this. There are these influencers who promote some sort of eating disorder recovery, but their recovery are photos of them undressed.
Yeah.
And it encourages body checking. Many of the women I work with actually spend a lot of time looking at other women's bodies on the internet and looking at photos of their own bodies. I'm going to take a selfie of my body. I'm going to put it next to this woman's body. What are her abs in a like comparison to mine? Have I got as many rolls here on my thigh? Whatever, all of these questions. Wanting to look like these women. Sometimes thinking, well, I look better than her and she's got the confidence to put her photos up. So
a lot of comparison. I actually experienced that once with someone who was a little, like, it wasn't a client of mine, but someone who was looking at my Instagram for the first time. And she's going down through all the people and starting to compare, like, you know, this person's abs, this person's whatever, in comparison with her own body. And then she comes to she didn't realize it, but it was a picture of me. She goes, see, I don't think she has a perfect body.
Wow.
And I was like, that's me.
Yeah, wow.
And it was interesting to see, now that you say that, it makes so much sense. Just, you know, obviously with her story and where she's coming from. But it's also not something that I would do because I got to a certain point, like in my body image and like self-love journey. But I was so surprised that she was doing that. But it's interesting now that you point that out.
It's a real thing, and I really discourage it. And a lot of these influencers on Instagram and YouTube are not actually promoting healthy lifestyles. A lot of them are actually very restrictive.
You think that influencers, like, what about like personal trainers, like these? Just everyone kind of like
people, okay, of course there are some amazing ones out there promoting a very balanced lifestyle, but a lot of them live very extreme lives. They have to exercise 6 days out of the week. They cut entire food groups out of their diets. They're not eating in a intuitive, holistic, wholesome way, and it can become another obsession for somebody, obsessively watching these people and really idolizing them, really putting them on pedestals and trying to emulate them.
So what do you think that Instagram needs? Like different body types, more inclusivity? I don't
think
so,
actually. I don't think it's about what Instagram needs. I think it's about people, I'm not going to say just women, people understanding that we are not only our bodies, and doing their own inner work to be able to see their values and really feel and know their values beyond their bodies, to get to the point where they can do a boudoir shoot and enjoy seeing their body and using their body and reflecting on their body, but it not becoming an obsession or some sort of beacon of their value. Are they imagining the photos that will be the product of the shoot and how they're going to go on Instagram? Are they imagining this person seeing them and that person seeing them and what that's going to be
or
like?
Are they doing it for themselves?
Or are they doing
what
it for themselves?
What the motivation is.
Exactly. And even if they're not going to post them on the internet, do they have these other people in mind somewhere in the back of their heads as they're going through the process? So
what if it's a spouse? Do you think that's healthy?
Can I come back to
that?
I want to stay focused on your original question, or I'll lose my train of thought.
Yes.
You were asking about what people who are recovering from eating disorders should bear in mind before doing a shoot.
Yes. Okay, so motivation.
Right.
One.
So first of all, your motivation. Also, are you going to use it as some sort of high watermark? I love my body right now because it's quite thin, and I know that I might gain weight as I enter more into recovery. If somebody's coming from a more underweight point of view, I think that motivation can come in many forms. I won't give more examples because it might be different for some people, but I think that's an important one. And then the other thing is how easily triggered you are. If you are somebody who really might struggle to be undressed in front of somebody else, perhaps there's also some trauma related to sex and being undressed and things like that. Or somebody who might become quite easily triggered by seeing photos of yourself. That doesn't mean don't do it, but in those instances I would say speak it through with a therapist, or as I say, a friend, family member, support person, and perhaps ask them if they'll come with you and be there with you in case you feel emotionally challenged, if you feel a bit unsafe at any point, and also to be with you when you look at the photos and talk it through, and make sure you're in a safe space when you see the photos.
As a boudoir photographer, I really think about that, because I send, when I'm done editing the photos, I send them and I'm like, okay, what are they going to think for the first time? And that's a big deal for me. And I'm even thinking, what time of day should I send it? I shouldn't send it at night because people are really tired and they just had a long, stressful day. Should send it in the morning. So that's a really good point, I think.
Yes, and it leads to your second question, which was how you as the photographer can really support and empower women who might be going through these difficulties. I think absolutely being sensitive about when they receive their photos and how they receive their photos. If somebody is a bit nervous and perhaps they've never been diagnosed with any sort of issue, they've never seen anyone or sought help, but you've sensed that it was quite hard for them, and that they might just do with having a buddy by their side when they receive their photos, to also maybe
just suggest it.
And maybe this buddy will be their objective voice of reason, somebody to help them to see their beauty, or somebody to support them if they really can't, they're struggling to, but to suggest it. Perhaps have somebody on your team or yourself could offer to do a private revealing of the photos and make it something special. It doesn't have to be a shameful thing that you need support the first time you see the photos. It could be something very lovely. It could be an exciting part of a package.
A reveal.
A reveal, exactly. It's like the grand reveal, and you've got your team.
I've thought about that before. I'll have to think about that more.
And it might be nice, and I know for myself, if I'm to see photos I love and I've got someone there, I'm so excited, and I want to, and if I don't love them, it's quite nice to be able to have somebody there who can have a bit of compassion and support and be like, okay, so your eyes are half closed in that one, but look, your toe looks great, or whatever it is. I know you would never send somebody a photo with their eyes half closed. I think also during the shoot, if you sense that somebody is struggling, and I'm sure again you already do this, that they are a bit self-conscious, their body language is telling one story, even if perhaps they're saying another, tell them and really explain to them that it really is safe and okay for them to share what's going on. You're not a therapist, and I agree with you shouldn't try and be one, but sometimes by just naming something, it can empower. And when I'm meal planning with somebody, I really do baby steps. If somebody says, I cannot eat, I don't know, 2 pieces of toast with peanut butter and a banana and a piece of fruit, I don't know, whatever I'm suggesting to them.
Right.
I really, really want to, but it either feels like way too much, it's gonna trigger me to want to restrict afterwards, or it doesn't feel like enough, I'm used to really overeating and that feels like I'm gonna starve to death. I meet them where they're at to begin with. I'll say, so what about if you just have this portion of the breakfast just for this week? Or you just have this breakfast 3 days out of the week, you check in with me beforehand. What about
pushing them like a little bit, like still staying within their comfort zone?
Smart goals.
Yeah.
What if you start off having a little bit more than what we've talked about, and we're going to reduce over time, and we're going to check in about how you're feeling as you try it out. Because really it's not even about the amounts of food, it's about the underneath feelings. And perhaps you could do that with the photography. So right now you don't feel comfortable to be completely undressed. Why don't we start off in a gown or a robe of some sort?
Yeah.
And
which
then
I generally try to do. I feel like
check
levels of undress, and like also check in to make sure they feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Or if it's one body part, you know, the person's stomach perhaps, why not start off with not having their stomach in the image, and seeing how they feel. And then what about the stomach, but maybe lying on the back, where everyone likes this. Well, I mean, not everyone, but I think a lot of people feel more comfortable with lying on their back for all of this stuff that the media tells us about flat stomachs. Maybe that feels better, and if that's still hard, talk to them about how they're feeling, checking in, see where their limits are. Don't push someone past their limit. However, if somebody knows that they've got room to push, but they're just going through the motions, they're just building up their confidence, very gently encourage them, ask them what they feel comfortable with. Do you feel that you could do this? Okay, no, well, what about this? Or do you have an idea what might help you to feel really beautiful right now or sexy? What I'm suggesting doesn't feel so great, but do you have an image in your mind? You know, I know when I did a shoot with Rebecca, I had this image a bit out of the box. I wasn't so interested in looking sexy, but I had a swing. I have this like beautiful like swing in my garden, and I really wanted these playful images of me. Actually, I was wearing a little dress, like a sundress, but I wanted these like images of me on the swing, like very playful, and I felt so gorgeous. Like I felt like you know, amazing. It was lovely. I felt like a fairy princess, and that felt great for me. And so I think asking and encouraging them to like share their fantasy of what's really gorgeous for them. Yeah,
that's really insightful. So
you'd asked about husbands.
Husbands.
Or partners. Might not be a husband. Might be a boyfriend, girlfriend, a wife.
It's interesting because I find that sometimes when, like you said, to include maybe like family member or a friend that could be supportive, I see both things happening. That sometimes the spouse or the family member, the friend can be really supportive, or also go the opposite way, where they have like preconceived notions of what a boudoir session is, and kind of coming at it from like, you know, this is vain, or it's too sexual, or it's, you know, all of these more negative spins on it, which make them feel more self-conscious, even if they really want to do it and they feel like there's something good in it for them. It holds them back. Or it could be really positive and amazing. And same thing with spouses. Like, generally most husbands like love the idea of it. I mean, it's exciting and it's fun and it's sexual, but there are people who have reservations. So I guess it is just choosing someone who you probably know is going to be supportive.
100%.
Especially if it is something that you want to do. I mean, you have to want to do it yourself first, and then find someone who's going to, like, you know, be on board and supportive and positive for you. So yeah, what were you going to say about spouses?
Look, if your spouse or your partner is not an ally and isn't into the idea, I don't think that is something to stop you doing it. I think it would be a real shame. I think that there are a lot of things in life that we might not be on the same page as our partner. That doesn't mean that we should hold them back or that they should hold us back. Unless something is going to be actually harmful to them or to your children or anyone else, you know, there's really no reason for somebody to want to stand in the way of you doing something that's going to bring you joy.
And empowerment.
And empowerment. If your partner's really uncomfortable with it, look, I don't obviously suggest that people should keep secrets or tell lies, but maybe just don't really go into details. If you know it's not really up their street, do they need to know so much about it?
Right.
You can, you know,
like what lingerie you're gonna wear, what pose you're gonna wear, do, you know, like.
If you've mentioned it and they were uncomfortable, it doesn't mean you don't have to do it, but don't necessarily say, oh, I did my boudoir shoot today, it was great, and I did this pose, and da-da-da. You don't want to necessarily trigger something more. When you receive the photos, again, you can experiment and explore with how you might think that they might feel.
Right. Or discuss it with them in a deeper way.
Exactly. But I would say that for most people, it might feel a bit disappointing or frustrating that one's partner isn't so interested. But really to try and hold space for them, and for what their needs are, for whatever reason, the stories they're telling themselves, their experiences of the world, and hold space for your own and differentiate. Enjoy your photos. You did them for you, and they might not be for them. They might not be for the partner, and that's okay. That doesn't mean they're not special. It doesn't mean you're not special. It doesn't mean the photos aren't beautiful or that you're not beautiful. Right. It means that your partner just has a different experience of the world. And we do all come from different cultural backgrounds. This is something that I think is such an epiphany. My husband comes from a Moroccan family. He grew up in New York. I'm from England. We have very, very...
so different.
So different, right? Even the food, I had to learn to cook a completely different cuisine. And if I took everything very personally, that was just him saying, look, that's not how I do things or how I see things, it would be impossible, and vice versa.
Right.
And we've had to learn to honor each other's narratives and honor each other's experience of the world, and that not mean us negating our own experiences or needs. And so, for example, sometimes I might make my husband some sort of like amazing couscous dish, and I might want to have gefilte fish, Ashkenazi Jewish slimy fish thing, whatever it is, you know.
Slimy fish thing.
We have different tastes. Yes. Actually, I have to say I'd probably rather eat the couscous than the gefilte fish, but you know what I'm saying. So maybe I'm going to want to do the photos and like really enjoy myself, and he's not going to be interested. And that's okay, because I did them for me, and maybe I've got some girlfriends I want to show, or maybe
which goes back to like the motivation and doing it for yourself, which I think is first and foremost.
Exactly. Another thing I might suggest is if it's really, if you're really interested in including your partner's narrative and experience in the world, and you know that they are open to the idea of a photo shoot, and they really like the idea of, or they've enjoyed photos of you in the past, perhaps you did an engagement shoot and they loved them, they thought they were beautiful, they're up on the fridge, whatever that is. But there's something about the sexual nature that boudoir suggests. Why not honor their narrative and include within your shoots some photos that they will find sexy, that they're going to be comfortable with.
Right.
Do the ones for you, and then if you know that you've got a really cute t-shirt, and that when you just put your hair in like that braid or whatever it is that
he loves it.
Yeah, exactly.
She loves it.
Why not just do 2 photos out of your 12 or whatever it is that are like that for them?
That's amazing. I really like that. That like, it also just, your answer makes me feel really comfortable, because it is something that I struggle with when I try to be like so supportive of women wanting to have an empowering experience, and I want them to feel good about it. And then if they walk in and like I can tell something's wrong, and they're like, well, my spouse wasn't really on board with this, it's like it is a thing, and it's hard for women. So hearing your perspective on that is really like comforting, and I hope that like women take that to heart.
I hope so too. I think really the message is that just because your partner might have a different narrative to you doesn't mean that your narrative is wrong or theirs is wrong.
Yeah.
So do your photos, maybe do some for them, and it's about just differentiating and holding space for their needs, and at the same time absolutely honoring yours.
So how do you think this kind of experience could be positive for someone on a journey towards healing from an eating disorder?
Right. I'm really glad that you asked me this. I think, we talked a little bit about the pros and the cons.
Yeah.
I think that somebody who's struggled with their body image and with self-love of their body could have such a great time doing this. I think it could be a really positive experience. If they're at the stage where they're able to love themselves beyond their body anyway, and that they're able to know and really really hold space for, like on that gut level, that heart level, that they're more than their bodies, and that their bodies are one manifestation of who they are, and that they're at this place of being really curious and really excited to get to know that physical aspect of themselves. They've got to know the emotional and psychological, and now it's time to get to know the physical, and to come to terms with, whoa, this is what I got to work with. How fascinating is this? And to, as I say, become really curious, like really become like an adventurer into like the existence of this like strange physical puppet that they dwell within, I
love that.
It could be so lovely. And I've absolutely worked with people who have got their photos and been like, whoa, that's what I look like? I am beautiful. That's so interesting. And even though
that's so interesting,
I can see my stretch mark and I don't care, like it actually looks really nice. Like I never really realized that, like, that part of my body really does look okay, and this is great. And I think that's wonderful, because sometimes it can take like a completely objective blast out of your body experience for you to kind of actually look in and see your body in that light.
Why do you think that is psychologically?
Mirrors lie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mirrors tell you what your head is thinking.
Yeah.
How many of us have woken up feeling great, looked in the mirror, got ready, and been like, oh my gosh, I'm so gorgeous today.
Yeah.
And then just miss the bus, it rains, someone's mean to us in the store, whatever it is, and then we see ourselves in like the bathroom mirror at work or something, and we think we look terrible. We mustn't trust mirrors. I think also the fact that with you, Rebecca, the experience of the boudoir shoot is fun, and it's comfortable, and
so they're also like associating the actual experience with the pictures.
And when we're happy, we feel better about all of ourselves. And so I think that there's something great there. And the flip side of that is I do think there are some dangers as well. I do think that really if somebody's not yet in the space where they really have that emotional and psychological strength, it might not be such a great thing. I think it could really re-trigger body obsession, body checking. A lot of people with eating disorders of all manifestations actually obsessively take photos of themselves. Obsessive weighing of their, wanting to know their weight, body check, photographing themselves, not even once a day, sometimes more times a day.
Wow.
When I wake up, how are my ribs looking? How are my abs looking? What are, side view, blah, blah, blah. How much can I suck in? All of these things. How much more bloated do I get throughout the day?
That's also like painful for me to imagine people using those pictures for that purpose. So I would never want someone to do a boudoir session if they weren't ready for it yet.
And that person just has to be honest with themselves.
Yeah.
If you know you're obsessed with your body, and you know you're obsessed with photographing your body and viewing photographs of your body and checking and comparing, whether it's against yourself or someone else, it's maybe not the best thing for your recovery. Really, it's buying into the addiction, actually. And don't let your addiction win. Overcome your addiction and then approach something like this from a really healthy place. Also, if you're in a place where you really are worried that seeing these photos right now might not help you to feel better about who you are, and might it might actually feed that narrative about not feeling so attractive, hold off, or try something different. Don't go the full way. Try, as I say, like what will make you feel really beautiful. And if what makes you feel really beautiful is a photo shoot with your kids in the park, Rebecca does those as well.
Right.
Beauty isn't only about boudoir. Beauty is about, as I say, joy, being authentic.
So I was going to say being yourself, feeling free.
Absolutely. So perhaps ask Rebecca to start off with some other photo shoot where you feel beautiful, free, authentic, happy, and see how that goes. And then as you get to know this image of yourself and your body,
right,
you can experiment as you wish to and what feels right for you.
And I think like just the fact that you said that the support could be really helpful. I think whether that means your friend or family member or your therapist, I think that,
I agree.
I think that's really an important aspect of it. Or just even tell me, like, if you want to be open with me and say, this is my story, this is where I'm at, like, I would love to know so I can help support you on that journey. And
absolutely. And you can always put them in touch with me, and if they just want to find out from somebody who really very sensitively and really authentically wants to make sure that they're going to be safe and comfortable, you know, whether it's me or somebody else in the field, like, they can help to decipher whether this is the right or best thing for them.
Right.
The one last thing I want to say on this is I've worked with people who've worked as fashion models, and one thing that always stuck with me was this notion of not eating or drinking before a shoot. And if that shoot went on until very late, becoming very dehydrated actually, as well as not eating. And if you're asking yourself or thinking about, if the thought is even crossing your mind, I'm doing this boudoir shoot, I want it to be in the morning because I can't eat or drink beforehand, or if it's, if there's even like one iota of the thought about not eating or drinking but not eating, any of that before working with Rebecca, I really encourage you to get some help, to really think about your motivations, to really consider whether this is the right thing for you right now. Your body is beautiful, healthy. The most important thing is for your body to be healthy. Don't harm yourself to look better in a photo, because somebody who is harming themselves or who is physically unhealthy in some way is not going to be their most glorious, glimmering, glamorous self.
Right.
So to really get your gorgeous, sexy, empowered photos, you want to be completely like well and your best self in a holistic way. So that popped into my head to say, and it's
actually interesting because I have like a list of to do before the session, and I have one of the things is to like stay hydrated the week before, get enough sleep, and it does say like the day of the shoot to eat a light but filling breakfast.
Right.
And so I didn't think of it in those terms, but I mean, I want people to feel healthy and to feel good and to not feel like they have to lose a bunch of weight before their session or look a certain way, but to really be their authentic selves.
Absolutely. And to feel good, we have to have fuel in our bodies.
Yeah.
I would be like crabby and irritable.
I know.
And definitely I wouldn't be able to get the right pose if I was hungry.
Yes.
So
we need focus, we need happiness and joy and fun and music and all those good things.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me about this. I really love your perspective and value your professional opinion, so I thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, as well. I really also value being included in this series and being able to share my experience. I really hope it helps some people.
Me too.
And I really must say that if you are somebody who's overcoming any of these issues and you do feel like you need some extra support or any extra help or anything, I really encourage you to reach out, not only to me, but I mean to anybody. There are people
But we will
around.
put the link to Johanna's
But I must say that
page.
if you are at that point where you feel that this could be something really positive for you, I cannot recommend anyone better than Rebecca. Having done it years ago as well, I have what to say about it. Rebecca is kind, compassionate. She meets you where you're at. She really is about empowering you as an individual. She really takes your emotional well-being seriously, as well as obviously getting that like gorgeous shot that you're looking for.
Thank you.
And so if there's anybody for you to experiment with this, whether you're someone with an eating disorder or body image issues or someone who's never had any of that, Rebecca is absolutely your woman, and I'm also so grateful to be part of your circle and to be included.
Thank you. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed. If you are seeking help or support for an eating disorder or a body image issue, please feel free to check out the description below. I'm putting Johanna's info there as well as my own. So if you have any questions about this video or just want to check out our work, feel free to do so. I'm really excited about this series, so if you liked what you saw, subscribe below and have an amazing day.